and welcome to Courage in Crisis, Conversations of Faith, Health, and Wellness. I'm your presenter this afternoon. My name is Algernon Lewis. I'm chairman of the Moravian Church, Eastern West Indies Province. And we've been bringing you these programs as we all traverse through the waters and this season of COVID-19, as we help persons to cope and to deal with all the challenges that are coming their way. We have gone through all different phases of this program, and these days we've been looking more at youth and how youth are affected by the COVID crisis. I am not going to be the main speaker this afternoon. I have two high-powered ladies in my presence on this program today as we focus on youth and youth who are transitioning to higher education. I have with me this afternoon Dr. Moya Rotham, and she is out of St. Kitts. And I also have Dr. Jovanka Smith out of Trinidad. Ladies, could you just say good afternoon? Begin with you, Sister Moya. Could you say good afternoon and hello to persons who are listening today?
Hello, good afternoon. I hope you're all well.
Good. Jovi?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing very well and look forward to your questions during our session.
All right. So you brought something up there saying, please send questions, especially for those of you who may be transitioning in your higher education and you're listening to this program, you can ask a couple of questions. All right. So, of course, when we hear, before we go on, I would ask you to just, how are you doing? Let's start with you, Dr. Smith. How are you doing? Meaning, how are you adjusting to the COVID crisis and all the other things that are happening around you?
I'm doing pretty well. In terms of the COVID crisis, like many other people, the work hours seem to be a bit more extended at home, a lot more meetings at home, and balancing family life with work. So other than that, I'm very grateful that we have been pretty safe and I'm well.
Great. Dr. Rotham?
Well, I'm thankful. Sister Jovis, mentioned that aspect of being grateful. I'm thankful, and like her, it's a matter of everything just merging, work merging with home life. And one of the things that I'm learning is that it just can't balance. It becomes a matter of prioritizing, but it is challenging, but in reflective mode.
Wonderful. So we're in a new season, and there are all kinds of variables that we're dealing with. As we move on, though, we start with you, Dr. Rotham. Tell us, what exactly do you do that that's in line with this conversation in terms of transitioning to a higher education? Can you tell us what you do, what role do you play now? And then we'll come to you, Dr. Smith.
Well, I've been an educator for almost 20 years. And I do believe that to a certain extent, it qualifies me to speak this evening. I have worked in the secondary school system, and I have also been a lecturer. Currently I am the vice president of academic and student affairs at the local college here in St. Kitts. And it is a position that I have recently assumed. I would have worked in administration before that as well, jostling positions of administrator and lecturer. So I have not yet been totally out of the classroom. It is my desire to always have a foot in, because, I've always said to my counterparts that I believe it is a way for me to stay grounded, always remembering the struggles. And because, so often persons rise in various levels of administration and they get amnesia. So I really desire to remain grounded. So for me, I consider myself a knowledge enabler, giving students that authority to create knowledge.
Dr. Smith, Sister Jovi.
Yes, hi everyone. I have been what you call a professional student for quite some time, since 2009, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree in civil engineering. I'm currently a lecturer at the University of the West Indies in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. I also consider myself to be a researcher since 2009, primarily. That is one of the avenues that I have used to obtain my my degree. So I can consider myself to be a researcher as well.
Okay, so in other words, both of you deal a lot with students. Right? So that, and you, in some regard, in administration and also in the classroom, you deal a lot with students. CFBC in St. Kitts, University of the West Indies, St. Augustine in Trinidad. So you're dealing with people who are coming from high school into this. So we are talking about transition. Is that necessary? Do we need to have this conversation about transitioning from high school to college and university? Is that a thing, as young people would say these days?
I would say very much so. In terms of the transition, every aspect of life, there's a transition. And so looking at the transition from high school to university, it depends on the individual. What do you have currently going on in your personal life? Those things are going to affect your personal transition. There are some general things that we would expect in a transition. If you're looking at students that are coming in from A levels, for example, we want to ensure that you develop a sense of independence in your work, interdependence with your classmates. You want to make sure you have time management skills in order to complete tasks on time, communication skills. Even though we're particularly in engineering, you need to have communication skills to complete every aspect of your degree. So in terms of looking at the transition, yes, definitely. But I would also say it depends on where this individual is in his or her life at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So the transition is a necessary discussion because we're going from one phase to the next. But we're talking to a wide variety of students. Is there an in-between section between, say, high school and college or university? Those are academic tracks. Do we have other things that happen? Sister Moya, are there other avenues for young people?
Yes, there are other non-academic routes, but regardless of what the route is, the transitioning, I believe that it is often overlooked. The importance for parents to understand that bridge that students need to cross, it can be very challenging because it now becomes a matter of students being self-accountable. They have to look at self-advocacy. They have to look at self-management, because no longer do you have your teachers, no longer do you really have your counselors looking out for you, but you have to do that yourself. The non-academic routes that many parents perhaps would not be familiar with because there is so much emphasis on the academic. There are the technical and vocational areas. And I would just want to encourage parents that they are to value the different skills and talents that students have, because everyone isn't going to be an academic. But I can assure you that even, we as academics, if we think about having to go and build a house, we will quiver and we'll shake when we have to consider how much it is going to cost to tile, how much it is going to cost to do our electrical, and all of those things are valuable tools. So we look at the technical vocational education and training, TVETs, that's what it is called. And so we look at the importance of looking of viewing education to prepare persons for the world of work and business. So it's basically concentrated on what you call workforce training, and basically you're looking at knowledge, the technical skills, attitudes, core skills like communication, information and communication technology, problem solving, collaboration, and even enhancing one's own learning and performance. And anyone who is interested in this kind of learning, leaving high school, going further, just check your local, if there's a TVET council. There are TVET councils in, in our various territories. So I would encourage parents just to consider the student who is not an academic. Not being an academic doesn't mean that there isn't worth in what the student is doing, and it should be valued.
Oh, that is very interesting. Almost feels like you went too fast there, Sister Moya, because you are speaking something that a lot of people need to hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The fact is that not everybody gets 6 and 7 CXCs or CAPE or what have you. That there are skills that you can learn that will bring you a decent kind of living and make you a valuable member of society. And so we need parents to also get over the fact that maybe your child is not as academic as you would like, and determine, okay, what do you like to do? Should we get you into tile laying? The other day, we were trying to get somebody to lay some tiles. You mentioned tiles. It took a while because there are so few really good tile layers. And in terms of electricians, plumbers, welders, all of those. So you're saying to us that there are actual courses that people can take to get certified, right? So that they're not just learning on the job, but that they're actually learning and they can know how to apply their trade properly. And so that is a very, very, very important thing for parents to know and young people to know, to say that there is another avenue, right? And thank you for bringing that up. Right. So everything is not about STEM and so forth in terms of, science, technology, engineering and math. There are other things that happen in the world. Okay. Do we want to say anything else about that non-academic route that before we move on to the academic route?
Yes. You mentioned STEM, and I like to put in the A in it. I like to reference STEAM, because so often, there's so much emphasis on the technology and the science. But, as one person said, it's actually the arts that make us human. So, that's A, STEAM. I'm an advocate for STEAM.
So now, before you go so fast, Sister Moya, because you're giving new information and new words, STEM we know. So now you're saying there is STEAM.
STEAM, where you insert
you're adding an A in the STEM to make it STEAM. Okay, all right.
For the arts.
For the art.
You're right. But just a little bit more on the TVET disciplines. You have when you go and you check to find with your TVET council what exists, because normally you do have what are called national training agencies or national training associations, and they are normally aligned with CANTA, which is the Caribbean Association of National Training Authorities. And basically this is basically a CARICOM body, and it influences the decision-making processes as it relates to the granting of NVQs and the CVQs. NVQs, National Vocational Qualifications, and the CVQs, Caribbean Vocational Qualifications. So the same way in which you get a bachelor's of arts in a particular discipline, or a master's or a PhD, is the same thing. You can be certified with an NVQ or a CVQ. Normally the range is from level 1 to level 5, from entry level to chartered professional and senior management occupations. So this is very important. It's not just going to say you are doing a thing, but you actually get paper, and you travel throughout the Caribbean with it. CARICOM skills training. That is what is happening. Just there, here in St. Kitts, we would have had when the park hat was being built, and they had to bring in a number of Guyanese and Jamaicans, because the number of persons that they needed at the local level, they did not exist as it relates to the paper, showing paper. the persons are skilled, but they have nothing to show for it. And that is just the sad reality. We are in a paper-driven world.
So you are saying to us, Sister Moya, that we're saying to parents who are listening to us, your son, your daughter just finished high school. They may not be interested in going to University of the West Indies or going someplace else, but there is another option. They can find a trade, a skill that they like, and they can get fully qualified in that area. Because when you're ready to build your house, you want somebody who will tell you, okay, you need 2 boxes of tile, and don't finish, when you finish with buying 2 boxes, and they tell you, oh, you actually need 4, right? Okay. I like that, and I think that maybe the church has a ministry in that, being able to help some young people and even older persons to say, get qualified in these areas so that you can make a living for yourself. All right, moving along from the non-academic route back to the academic route. In the transitioning, and I'm going to go to you, Sister Jovi. In the transitioning, what are some of the keys to success for students who are coming over? Let's deal with the normal, because we're gonna have to come to deal with what COVID does to this. But in terms of the normal sense, what are some of the keys to success? Because there are some students who are actually going off to university, who are going to be meeting face-to-face this year. So what are some of the keys to success?
You have to determine what motivates you. You have to know as a person what currently motivates you, because you're going to need to hold on to that for the vicissitudes of what is going to take place during your time at the university, right? There's going to be, there's usually an initial shock with students that enter within that first semester and within that first year. Reason being, you're no longer under your parents the way you're accustomed. Your meal pattern is going to change. Numerous things are going to change. Your interaction with your peers are going to change. You're going to move on from this particular institution to this other one. For some people, this is the first time in a very long time that they're changing institutions. So they have to learn to build new friendships, etc. All at the same time, they have to develop the skills that they need in order to be successful within the degree program. They will be entering a program where they have to, maybe, for example, in my context, in civil engineering, you now have a whole new subject, a whole new topic. You may not have seen that before. You have to do group work, etc. So all those things combined help to create some sort of chaos in your life at that moment. And you're going to have to try to stabilize it. You're going to try to have to stabilize that and be successful during that semester, right? Financial implications come up sometimes. So there are numerous things. So you have to find that support system, and you have to know what motivates you, and you have to hold on to that.
Good. Sister Moya, want to add anything else to this?
No, just for me, change, well, just using my own experience, having to cultivate an adaptable mindset. I'm using it as an acronym. Harness who you are, understanding that, Sister Jovi alluded to it, understanding that you have to know what motivates you, but at the same time, if it is that you say that you are a believer, you're a child of God, understanding that your career path, it's not, your path is not different from what anything else that God has for you. It is a part of your purpose, understanding what are your strengths and how you can use these powers to advance. There's that ancient Greek aphorism, know thyself. And, we often say these things not really understanding what they mean. But we also need to acknowledge the beginnings. And that is something that I had to do as well, understanding my family, knowing where I came from, where am I going, because you definitely need that support. That support is very important. Noting patterns. I always say to students, once you understand the likes and the dislikes of your lecturers, one lecturer might like something a particular way, another one doesn't care for it another way. It's very important. It's like chalk and cheese. So you have to note patterns. And for, G, generate new pathways. You have the destiny, but we may not all get there at the same time. I mean, we need a separate program for me to really explain to persons what my pathway was like. It was not that, it was not that which I had set out, but I got where I was going, and I can't say that it was always pleasant. I think oftentimes those of us who have achieved, we give the impression that everything went smoothly. It doesn't always go smoothly. We have the hiccups. And then E, as Sister Jovi again mentioned, the communication, engage, engage, and engage. Ask questions. When you're in doubt, ask questions. Communication for clarity.
Sounds good and structured, like the educator you are. That's as your area, so you're educated for so many years. I hope that a lot of our students are really listening, and I want to remind persons that you can send some questions ahead, right in this program, or even after the program is over, you can send questions ahead. Sister Jovi and Sister Moya are available to continue the discussion. But in the context that you find yourself, both of you, what are some of the mistakes that you see students make? What are some of the common pitfalls? You may see one or two here and there.
That's an interesting question. I would tell you of a mistake that I saw in myself, that I experienced, and I see it in the students. So I try to encourage them in this area. Particularly when you are now focused on your degree or focused on any aspect of your life, you begin to think that this is the end all of everything. And you give it quite a lot of weight. And it is weighty because you want to be successful. But you don't want to think that this in and of itself is all that is to life. So that you stress yourself out to a point where you can't function as you would in the program, right? So that is one thing that I noticed with a lot of students. They start to think that the degree or the program or the subject or this exam is the end of everything. So if I don't score a particular point, or if I don't make a particular grade in this test, then that's the end of life. It gets to that point. And it really is not, you can try again, you can do something, don't give up, but you can try again. There are other avenues. Because you may not have been successful in this particular area, because you're not maintaining a high GPA. We found this in a lot of students that tend to have a very high GPA. They don't want to fail, they don't want to get anything less than an A, and they stress themselves out so much. And a lot of times the employers, they find that the students that are average, they tend to do better in the workplace sometimes, right? Because you don't want to develop that type of attitude where you're just a perfectionist and you can't make a mistake anymore, so you can't learn and you can't grow. I'm not saying to aim low, you aim high, but remember, it is not the end of the world, right? So that is one thing that I noticed about students, and I experienced it myself.
Moya.
For me, I would say, do what you feel you need to do. Don't follow friends. And it may sound a bit rebellious, but don't do what mommy and daddy wants you to do. And parents need to understand this, because at the end of the day, children have to live with themselves, right? Parents are there to guide. And I would have seen it happen to students where they come, even, with family members, what parents want them to do. And they just end up being frustrated and if you want to look at how their lives would have turned out, just being a total mess. So parents should be there to guide. But and it is something that even for me, I am learning as it relates to my own son, that the same spirit of say excellence that I would want, he isn't interested in that. He's interested in just getting by. And while I try to say, form him, to show him this is what you need to do, and you try to teach life lessons, you have to allow room for mistake, and to allow persons to make mistakes, and let them be. Let them do what they believe that they need to do. Once it's not anything that is illegal. As my mother always said to me, whatever you're gonna do, and maybe it comes from the way in which my parents raised me, they never pushed us into anything. And I said, well, if you're gonna clean window, be a professional window cleaner. You will find a market. If you are good at what you do, you will make money.
Sister Moya, I must tell you that you are being radical here, telling children do what they want to do. Don't do what mommy and daddy says in terms of your degree.
In your guts. Your guts.
But I've heard of students who went all the way through medical school because their parents wanted to do medical school, go to medical school, become doctors. They went all the way through, graduated, and then after they graduated said, I don't want to do medicine. And then went back to do what they wanted to do. And I find that, very, very difficult to deal with as a parent of teenagers myself. Right. But tell me, we're talking about parents here. What is the role of parents in this transition? Let's continue with parents. Sister Jove, we coming to you.
Yes, the role of parents in the transition. So as Moya described before, we want to encourage the students to know themselves and to know what it is that they want to do. As for the parents, you want to support your child, but you have to allow, or you have to recognize that at this point in time, it is your child. They would forever be your child, but the child is now an adult, and they have to make certain decisions. And you ought not to, for example, you will not be able to contact the lecturer and ask the grades that the child would have obtained in a course, because we are not allowed to give you that information, right? That is your child, but the child is now an adult. So you want to ensure that you would have, or you want to trust every skill or the skills they would have needed to get to this particular point. And you would continue to encourage them and everything, but you have to let them be. You have to let them be, right? You have to let them learn, and you have to let them be.
So you have to stand up and watch your child make some mistakes, it seems. Sister Moya?
Yes, I believe that this is very important. And it goes for relationships in general. Oftentimes, the ones that we love, we try to protect. And sometimes in protecting them, they end up resenting us for that protection, because it is often misinterpreted. So I believe sometimes you indeed have to just stand back and exercise faith, pray, and let them be, and just hope that the consequences, they are reparable, that it will not cause too much harm. But when it comes on to children, I believe that there is always that need. Maslow speaks about it on his hierarchy of needs, and the ultimate being that of self-actualization. If it is that one is really going to walk that route, then we have to understand that there is room for mistakes. I oftentimes recall going to school with a particular schoolmate, and throughout her entire career, she was always, lauded, never given that opportunity to make mistakes, and just always pushed all. And I'm not saying that that's the reason for it, but You know, she ended up committing suicide in her later on, because when you never know what adversity is and you are faced with it to the point where you don't know what it is that you're going to do, and you don't really have that pillar of faith, it can bring about some very serious consequences. So, you know, Sister Jovi mentioned the students who are average, who excel in the workplace. And I tell persons all the time, having gone to UWI Mona, it's not the students who came with the 10 ones and the 13 ones who made it on the honor roll. Those weren't the students who graduated with first class honors. Those are the students who sometimes you'd find switching, and they're at UWI for 10 years and still can't complete a first degree because they keep on switching. So sometimes a little adversity is good.
A little adversity is good.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something there which I think we need to emphasize with parents. You know, you need to pray.
Yeah.
Right? You need to be praying for your child. Yep. All now praying, Lord, cover them, but be prepared to release them so they go forward. But also, before these students leave home, as a younger person, what would you have wanted your parents to say to you as you leave home? Now, this may be an awkward question, but what would you, going back to when you went off to university the first time, what would you have wanted that last conversation to be before you left the house?
I mean,
what would you, Moya, and then we go to you, Javanka.
What would I mean, for me, I think for me, my parents always let us be, you know, so for me, you know, expectations, there wasn't anything, because it was, you know, the formation was there from day one. And formation, you talk about prayer, you know, oftentimes even when children appear rebellious, you know, they know you just be that robot. You don't have to tell them anything, you know, just operate within your household, and they will know, because you'll hear, I mean, Jonathan will say, Mommy, I don't want you to open your mouth to release anything in the atmosphere. Mommy, be careful. They know the power of prayer. They know the power of the word. And sometimes when they're being rebellious, you just leave them alone and you just operate. But I mean, for me, my parents always supported us, and they never compared us. There are three of us, and they never compared us as children. Never.
Javanka?
Yes, well, I want to go back to something you mentioned before I answer your question. You said that, you know, to stand and watch your children make mistakes. So I just want to rephrase that. It's not that you're going to stand and watch them make mistakes, but you're going to stand and watch them solve their problems, right? You're going to have your lifeline there that they can reach out, but you're not going to stand and watch them make mistakes. You're going to stand and watch them problem solve, and you're going to assist with that. To go back to your...
Spoken like a STEM person, right? Be very technical here.
To go back to your question, what would I have loved? Well, for those who did not know, my mom passed when I was just in that transition period, when I wanted to go off to university, completing my advanced A-levels. And I think for me, what I knew, even though she was not there physically, what I knew is that she loved me, and for my family, I knew that they loved me. No matter what happened, I can come home. That was important for me. The other skills, she gave me those skills. She raised me with those skills, the skills that I would have needed. So I was pretty confident and comfortable. But I knew that no matter what happened, I have a home, right? So I wouldn't feel like an outcast if I didn't, if I were not successful or something. I have somewhere where I can come home.
Wow, that is powerful stuff you all are talking here. You know, it almost seems like you're saying to parents, don't sweat it. Don't get too worried. Be calm. If you did the work beforehand, it's now time for you to see what's going on. But that is a powerful message, though, that you just said there, Jovi, to parents. Know that you have to make sure that your child knows that they are loved and they can always come home. Because some persons, oh my God, let mommy know. I can't let daddy know I got a B or a C or a D or I fail. I can't. And so they have to put on ears to try to impress people, which is unnecessary. That's very, very, very good. So parents, you have an important role, but you got to back off. You got to back off.
Brother Alganan?
Yes.
May I share something quickly?
Sure, sure.
I remember when I did CXCs at the time, it would have just, well, CSEC, but you know, at the time they didn't have the advanced proficiency exam.
Right.
And I mean, you know, being the diligent student and everything, but when the results came, I didn't get the subjects that I thought, the quality passes, I didn't get them. And I remember going to my mother's school the evening, and she looked at me and she said, you collected your results? And I looked at her and I bowed my head and I started to cry. And my mother said to me, if you open your mouth round here and cry, I'll give you one lick, because you don't waste time. So, you know, goes back to what Sister Jovi is saying, you know, you support children, you know, through thick and thin, you know. Yeah.
That is a word to some parent.
Yes.
There now, do not sweat it, right? Yeah. That's a good word. We are in this COVID-19 situation. I want to pivot just a little bit in terms of for those students who are coming in for the first time, CFBC, St. Augustine, Trinidad. How is COVID changing that initiation period there? Let's go with you, Jovi. For those persons who are coming to St. Augustine in the civil engineering department, or you in general in Trinidad, what are some of the changes?
Well, the education system was changing before, but COVID accelerated it. So now we have a lot more online learning. That may be in various forms, whether it be online where you are on an online platform live, like this one, or you may be something they call blended learning, where the students kind of teach themselves under the guidance of a lecturer, etc. So we are transitioning into that type of system now. So the students are really going to be affected because, as I mentioned before, within this first year period, you have to develop certain skills. And so now we introduce the COVID situation with the online learning, and it makes it a little more challenging for them to interact and to gain the support of their peers, etc. So we as lecturers, we have to also play our part and do our role and be more intentional to help the students with that transition in this period.
Sorry, Moya, please.
Yes. For us, we do not have the resources, you know, of the other established universities. But for us, we do have lecturers who would have been experimenting with online teaching and learning. As Sister Jovi said, what COVID has done is that it has accelerated many plans for blended learning. And so what we are doing, we are basically trying to make training a bit more formalized for lecturers. But the concern abounds as it relates to our first years coming in. And even a simple thing such as the access to a technological device, you know, the use of a laptop, having a laptop, because, you know, oftentimes we see throughout the Caribbean persons not wanting to buy books. And so you wonder now, you know, now you're going to need your books, but you will definitely need a computer because it is essential. So that has become one of the essentials, right? And not just a computer, but you need certain software, right? And so these are things, basic elements of communication, including that of netiquette, because we would have experienced during the COVID period where they were home, where lecturers report, you have students, they are not on an even playing field at home. At least at school, at college, there is a common space, but some of them, they don't even have you have to look at internet access. You have to look at the fact that you may have more than one child at home. Parents can't afford more than one device. Things like that we are taking into consideration, even though we can't do anything about it, but we have to be sensitive to those kinds of things, and students being able to use the device, because sometimes you believe that they can use it, but when you get them to do some kind of presentation, you realize that no, definitely they are not familiar with it at all.
Right. Well, we've covered a lot of good ground here. I'm hoping that a lot of our young people are really listening to this, and are thinking, for those who are going off to university, preparing themselves accordingly. I'd want to also say, I know for you, we sometimes we have Moravian chaplains who are associated. So if you end up on a UE campus, you should ask for the Moravian chaplain or any pastor to help you in terms of your own orientation, in terms of your own spiritual journey through the university and so on, because we need all the support we can get. I want to, and I'm going to be very unfair with this, 2 or 3 minutes. Both of you are PhDs. Jovi, you are PhD in civil engineering, which is it's a typically male area. And Moya, you're in education, which is probably typically female. Mm-hmm. This is probably another program, but I mean, how was your journey? Did you always want to be a PhD? And was it like, yeah, I saw this and I just ran and went, or talk to somebody out there who is like, PhD, I too dunce for that. Say something. And I'm saying I'm short because this is like the signature question. This is the last. Jovi?
You should have brought this question up earlier. No, to answer the question, no, I did not always want to get my PhD. I did not want to do civil engineering. I wanted to be an architect, and I felt as though the civil engineering would have given me more opportunity at the time. So I went with the opportunity. I didn't, at the point in time when I did civil engineering, I didn't even understand completely the difference between civil engineering and architecture when I started. So that's where I came from. And, opportunity showed itself and I took the opportunity and ran with it. For me, let me say this, that I in prayer, in my personal prayer, it was revealed to me that I would have a scholarship and I would have access to higher education. And that was one of my driving forces. So whatever came my way, I didn't let it stop me from anything, because I held that in my heart and I knew that, okay, this is what I have been told, this is what I believe, and this is what I'm moving forward with. And it all works out in the ending. I'm still alive, things can still change, but this is where I am currently.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Well, for me, I've always wanted to be a PhD. Always wanted to have one. And for me, even though I'm saying my PhD is old, and what next? So for me, it's I love to do research. For me, it's a love of learning. It's something that especially my father would have fostered, that love for learning. I've always said my mother fostered the love of the arts, but my father, the love of learning. And I remember the morning when I was going to graduate, when I stepped out, in my gown, my mother said, this is a partial fulfillment of prophecy. You know, I remember that those were her words. You know, normally you have those papers that say this is partial fulfillment of the requirement for a master's. That's what, you know, those were her words. You know, so and for me, it's all wrapped up in my purpose. What God has created me for, I believe that in my heart of hearts. And for me, my PhD, it's not just for me. I consider it is there for others, to empower others. Yeah, that's very important for me.
Wow, wow. Wonderful stuff. I really enjoyed talking with both of you. Two young women, two PhDs, lecturing, Javanka lecturing at University of the West Indies, St. Augustine in the area of civil engineering, and Moya as Vice President of Academic Affairs at the CFBC in, I'm trying to, something Bryant College. What's the C4 again, please?
Oh, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College.
Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College there in St. Kitts. Both of you have really warmed my heart this afternoon, and the information that you've shared. I'm hoping, again, for young people in our congregations that are moving on, some are going to A-levels, some are going off to junior college in the States or going off to UE, that this information is significant. And also for church members, because they also need to be part of the support, and parents, so that they will know what is going on and be more open. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Thank you, Dr. Rotham, for sharing this afternoon. And may God continue to bless you and prosper you. And may you continue to be channels of favor and blessing to the students that you interface with consistently. Again, this has been Courage in Crisis. We had a conversation talking about young people transitioning to tertiary level education. And we had these two ladies, Dr. Smith, Javanka Smith, Dr. Moya Rotham, sharing with us today. I'm your presenter, Algernon Lewis, and good to have you with us today. We'll see you next week. We've been focusing a lot on young people, and we'll continue to do that in next week's program. See you.